President William Ruto's official trip to the United States has been...
Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been a horrifying spectacle of carnage and devastation.
Well, thank you very much. May I first express, on behalf of my delegation, the warm reception we've received since our arrival here, this beautiful city, Nairobi. The problem that faces Africa, we have the history of colonialism. That history has burdened independent African countries for a long time. I believe that very few countries have shaken off the burden of colonialism after independence. For a long time, independent African countries continued to focus in terms of relations to their former colonial masters. It is now, in recent history, that we have begun to collaborate as African countries among ourselves, changing focus from the former colonial masters, relating to ourselves. Africa as a continent has resources enough to develop, modernize, and industrialize our continent as a people. But it has taken us long to shift from the focus of believing that our development must be linked to our former colonial masters. Africa has resources that, if we correctly focus on the domestic resources we have on the continent, we have resources to develop our countries. Most importantly, in my view, since the Second Republic in Zimbabwe, we have decided that to develop our country, we must embrace science and technology. All our universities in Zimbabwe now have a serious bias towards science and technology, because we realize that the countries that have developed have done so on the basis of science and technology. We have introduced focus that in the past we had graduates from our universities who spoke English very well, but did not produce a product. So it is critically important that our younger generation must have the pride either to produce a product or a service. In the same manner, our universities must produce products where, when they leave university, they contribute to their country by producing a product or a service. The first world is the first world because they have produced products for themselves. They have produced a service which services their own demands for their own communities. So that's what we must do. So Africa must shift its focus towards science and technology which brings about a service to the people, a product to the people. The things that we need, yes, there is the philosophy or the understanding that you cannot invent the wheel. But it is necessary that we change our approach to development and modernization by embracing, in fact, as a continent, we have everything at our disposal to modernize, mechanize our agriculture, our education system should produce students who, when they leave university, they should have the pride that they have the capacity to produce a service for their country. They have a pride that they are producing products for their country. And that way, without much reliance on Europe, Asia, whatever, but exchanging scientifically the resources and knowledge among ourselves as African countries, I can see our country developing very, very fast. It is in my belief that those countries in Africa, on the African continent, who are doing well, they are doing well because they have internal domestic focus. What do they have? What can service their needs at the domestic level, as a country, as a people, both in terms of products and in terms of services? And if we all collaborate as an African country, as a continent, I believe that our pace for development and modernization will be faster. But if we continue to develop our countries in silos, it will take longer. In the past, for instance, which our founding fathers were able to move away from, if a delegation was leaving Mozambique wanting to come to Angola, they would first go to Portugal, to Europe, and then come down to Angola. And yet, we should have the means to fly directly from Mozambique to Angola. If we wanted to go to Ghana, we'd first fly to London and then come back to Africa, to Ghana. That shows how disconnected Africa was. And we must begin to have internal connections by ourselves. And as a continent, I believe that my dear brother here, Sesengeso, spoke about the possibility of generation of power in the Congo, which would service the entire African continent and even have access for Southern Europe on the Congo River. But to achieve that will require the collaboration of the entire African continent to put resources to achieve that which is possible to service Africa. But now, we work in silos and look forward and look up to Europe or some other former colonial powers to service and develop our own region.
Okay.
I'm happy that now there's a crop of African leaders who now focus on the collaboration of the developing of our respective countries by collaborating among ourselves. It could be in agriculture, it could be in education, and so on. For instance, in Zimbabwe, for all along, we were relying on importing wheat from Ukraine throughout. And yet, it is possible to grow enough wheat for ourselves. When we looked at it and said, how much wheat do we need per year and how much hectares of land do we need per year to grow the wheat we want? That same application, that same approach can apply to every single African country. The continent has land enough, arable land enough to produce food for Africa and surplus. But we don't do it. You still have countries in Africa who import food from Europe. Why? Because we have not broken that link between past colonialism and independence. It is still lingering in the minds of those who have not been able to move away. So, platforms like this one, where we share ideas, it is my belief that they're very useful because then we realize that if we collaborate, we have the chance of developing our respective economy far more than when we work in silos. For instance, the former colonized countries by Britain or the Anglo side of the Anglo former colonies speak to themselves. The French speak to themselves. Now, you now have Africa being divided between the divisions in Europe. The English on their side, the French on their side, and they bring that baggage to us. As we are here, I need somebody if I want to talk to my brother who speaks French and I speak English, we need an interpreter. So we must find a way where ourselves as Africa focus on integrating our systems. Let us in Zimbabwe learn languages so that we can speak to Mozambique, we can speak to the Congo. But no, we have to master English or French, foreign languages in Europe in order to speak to ourselves in Africa. My brother here, President Ruto, speaks Swahili. Swahili is spoken in many countries. Why don't we speak Swahili or make Swahili a national language so that we can speak to each other? But no, we find pride in speaking English or French. You see? So you get married to a beautiful woman because you speak good French or good English. If you continue to speak your own domestic language, your own language, no one, they think you are primitive.
President Mnangagwa, we're going to have
Thank
to...
you very much.